The Potala Palace has stood on the Red Hill in the center of Lhasa for 1300 years. Tibetan kings and Dalai Lamas once lived there, and when the Dalai Lamas died, their ashes were kept at the palace. According to the new history of Tang Dynasty, in the early years of the 7th century, Tibetan King Songtang Gampo chose Lhasa, with its plentiful water, lush grass, and winding rivers, as capital of his kingdom. He built the Potala Palace for his bride, the high-nationality Princess Wancham. The book describes the magnificent palace like this. The palace is over 30 walls in height, broad in area, with each side more than 500 meters in length. The main gate faces south. There are 900 rooms in the Red Palace, plus rooms in the top, more than 1,000 in all. It is as wondrous as heaven, both pleasant and solemn. This marvelous palace was struck by lightning in the period of Chisom Dejan, then destroyed in the turmoil of war in the Landama period. Only the cave for the Prince of Dharma and the main hall of the Pabalakan survived. The fifth Dalai Lama came into power in 1642. On March 15, 1645, together with Gu Shi Khan, he surveyed the Red Hill and decided to rebuild Potala. When the White Palace portion was completed in 1648, the fifth Dalai Lama moved from Jeban Monastery to Potala, and since then it has been the administrative center for the local Tibetan government. Before the fifth Dalai Lama died, he handed over political and religious authority to Diba Sanji Gyatso, the Tibetan king. To raise the king's prestige, the Dalai Lama made a fingerprint in gold dust and left a will written in liquid gold. Beginning on the 8th day after the death of the fifth Dalai Lama, under the direction of Sanji Gyatso, the Red Palace and the holy stupa for the deceased religious leader were constructed. To mark the completion of the Potala Palace, a blank tablet with no words was erected. Located on a hillside, the Potala winds its way to the top of the Red Hill, covering an area of 41 hectares and measuring 117.19 meters in height. With a total construction area of 130,000 square meters and a width of 400 meters from east to west, the Potala Palace has 13 stories, 1,000 rooms, and 7 gold roofs. Potala is Sanskrit for the shrine of the goddess of mercy. It is believed that the goddess bestows her blessings on all people. The Potala Palace resembles a mountain range, with layers of buildings rising one upon the other, lofty and rugged temples, solid granite walls, splendid gold roofs, and huge decorative gilded urns. Glittering with gold and with bright flecks fluttering, the colors of red, white, and yellow would seem to create a clash of colors. Yet all the buildings exist in harmony with each other. All the above show the unique charm of the ancient Tibetan architectures. The three main sections of the Potala Palace are the Palace Castle, foot of the Hill Castle, and the Linka of Dragon King Pool. The Palace Castle comprises the Red Palace, White Palace, Monastery Academy, School of Monks, and East Joy Square. The Red Palace is used to enshrine eminent monks, while the White Palace is the place for the living. The Dalai Lamas hold meetings here. The foot of the Hill Castle in Tibetan means snow. It originally served as the center for the local Tibetan government. The Linka of Dragon King Pool, north of Red Hill, is called Zhongjiao Lukan in Tibetan, or Temple of the Dragon God. It is said that when construction of the Potala Palace began, workers went for earth to the north side of Red Hill. As they dug, clear spring water spurted from the earth. People said this was a sacred spring bestowed by the dragon god. By the time the construction of Potala was finished, the sweet, clean water from the spring had formed a beautiful lake. Going upstairs from here, we can see the main gate to Potala Palace. The wall of the gateway is 4 meters thick, designed as for defense. At the end of the Poncho Dolan gateway, there are 2 big drums, which are used for announcing the time. East Joy Square, or Deyan in Tibetan, covers an area of 1,600 square meters. On the 29th day of the 12th month of the Tibetan calendar, religious dances are conducted here to greet the New Year and pray for happiness in the coming year. In the Potala Palace, the countless stairs, winding corridors, and delicate gates make us feel as though we are in a maze. Statues of the Dalai Lamas and Tsongkhapa, the founder of Yellow sect of Tibetan Buddhism, are enshrined in the Buddhist halls. Since early 1600s, when the Yellow sect was established, there have been 14 living Buddhas, all of whom made great contributions to the continuation of the Yellow sect and the development of Tibetan culture. The East Hall, which is called Chotjenzak in Tibetan, is a building used for political meetings. It was completed in 1605. In the main hall, there is a throne for the Dalai Lamas with a horizontal inscribed board hanging above, which was granted by Emperor Tongzhi of the Qing dynasty. Important ceremonies and religious affairs, as well as the administration of state matters and granting of titles, were conducted here. It is also the place where the Dalai Lamas meditate. Here is the topmost place in the White Palace, with plenty of sunshine and a wide view. Each Dalai Lama has 2 suites of living rooms called the Sunshine Halls. In both the East and the West halls, there are scripture rooms, guest rooms, scripture learning rooms, and bedrooms. Ornate furniture and other ornaments decorate the rooms. This is the portrait of the 13th Dalai Lama. Centered with the Buddhist hall, the main hall is composed of scripture study rooms, guest rooms, bedrooms, and balconies. It is comfortable and convenient, with a magical ambience. The Dalai Lamas could deal with a whole day's affairs without leaving these rooms. The design of the main hall exemplifies Tibetan Buddhist architecture. The Red Palace is the site of the holy stupas to enshrine Dalai Lamas. It contains a number of halls. The door to the holy stupas is the most magnificent one in the Potala Palace, with gilded copper ornaments and knockers in the shape of animals. There are also colorful figures on the lintel, the lines of which are vigorous and bold. A row of carved lions stands guard under the eaves, silent but watchful. There are 8 holy stupas in all. That of the 5th Dalai Lama is the most splendid, and that of the 13th Dalai Lama ranked second. The 13th Dalai Lama's statue is enshrined in the pagoda hall built for him. The 12.97-meter-high pagoda comprises a base, body, and top, entirely covered with more than 590 kilograms of gold. It is heavily inlaid with diamonds, pearls, coral, and agate, making it the most valuable of the 8 pagodas. Delicately designed and exquisitely built, these gold relief sculptures look vivid and lifelike. Each gorgeous pagoda embodies the Tibetan people's piety and respect for the Buddha. It is customary in Tibetan Buddhism to preserve the bodies of eminent monks within pagodas. The body is first rinsed with perfumed water, then antiseptics applied. Afterward, the body is tightly bound in white cashmere cloth with only the head and arms left outside. After it is immersed in soda water, the dehydrated body will be put into a special wood enshrine. In a solemn ceremony, as Buddhist texts are recited, the body is laid to rest eternally in the pagoda. In the hall, various exquisite musical instruments and sacrificial vessels used in Buddhist rituals are on display. This pearl pagoda was made with 200,000 pearls. The three-story hall looks luxurious and majestic with colorful canopies and streamers. There are carved beams and painted rafters along the corridors on each story. The frescoes on the wall illustrate the life of the 13th Dalai Lama. Sishi Pingtuo, or the West Hall, was built for the 5th Dalai Lama. It is the largest hall in the Red Palace. Emperor Qianlong of the Qing dynasty bestowed the horizontal inscribed board that hangs in the hall. The throne of the 5th Dalai Lama stands in the hall, where some of the most important Buddhist rituals take place. The 725 square meter hall has 44 large beams on which the images of Buddha and different animals are inscribed. The Buddha Hall in the cave for the Prince of Dharma, which was built in the early 7th century, is the oldest part of the Potala Palace. Statues of Sunzang Gambu, Princess Wenchun, and Zizun stand within the hall. It is said that Sunzang Gambu once sat in meditation here in front of the image of Guanyin Buddha. Above the cave is the hall to worship Guanyin Buddha. According to some historical records, Sunzang Gambu was the incarnation of Guanyin Buddha, so this sculpture is regarded as a treasure that protects the Potala Palace. This series of frescoes on the east wall of Da Song Ge corridor leading to the East Hall illustrates the story of the marriage of Sunzang Gambu and Princess Wenchun. On the frescoes, we could see buildings of Chang'an, the capital of the Tang Dynasty, and the scenes of Lhasa citizens warmly welcoming Princess Wenchun's arrival after her long journey. This scene shows Sunzang Gambu building Jokan Monastery and Ramag Monastery for Princess Wenchun and Zizun. On the east wall of the West Hall in the Red Palace are frescoes that depict the 5th Dalai Lama having an audience with Emperor Shunzhi of the Qing dynasty in 1652. We can see that the whole capital city of Beijing filled with enthusiasm as Emperor Shunzhi speaks with the Dalai Lama and the officials of Qing and Tibet exchange gifts. On the second story of the 13th Dalai Lama's holy Stupa Hall is a scene showing the Dalai Lama in an audience with Emperor Guangxu and Dowager Empress Cixi. All these frescoes are genuine historical records. These are some of the gilded books and golden seals that the Chinese central government used to confer titles of Tibetan local officials and the religious leaders since the Yuan dynasty. This is the memorial tablet with the words "Long live our current emperor" written in Chinese, Tibetan, Mongolian, and Manchu languages. Every Dalai Lama since the 7th Gansan Gyatso has come here to pay homage. Many of the cultural relics in the Potala Palace are among the finest examples of the arts of Buddhist sculpture, fresco painting, tanka, mandala, metal and porcelain wares, and musical instruments. They also epitomize the distinctive of Tibetan Buddhist culture and display the wisdom and artistic genius of the Tibetan people. Some of these cultural relics are from neighboring Buddhist countries. Some are presents granted by emperors and kings. There is a fascinating story behind each and every one. The frescoes and tanka of the Potala Palace are famous for their simplicity and boldness. Because they recorded many aspects of Tibetan people's lives, including religious and historical legends, business activities, and entertainment, they have become precious records for historical research. These frescoes were painted strictly in accordance with principles set out in Tibetan books and records, such as on painting images, Buddha's talk about painting, and so on. They not only reflect the high level and distinctive style of Tibetan painting, but also establish a secure place for these works in the world of art. This mandala, the biggest work of art in the Potala Palace, is the ideal city or paradise in Buddhist heaven. Each Buddha has its own castle. Each is distinctive, but all are glorious. They are the perfect kingdoms the Buddha will lead his followers to enter in the future. Another treasure of the Potala is the abundant scriptures. The ganjur were written in liquid gold, and their covers are inlaid with pearls and gems. They are the most precious and exquisite books in the world. These delicate and unique books are Sanskrit Buddhist scriptures written by India in ancient times. All these books are invaluable to research on the history, politics, economy, culture, and arts of Tibet. The Potala Palace is renowned worldwide for its magnificent buildings and exquisite works of art. On March 4, 1961, the State Council declared it a historical relic under state protection. In 1989, the Chinese government appropriated funds for 5 years of maintenance for the Potala Palace, removing hidden dangers and troubles. In 1994, UNESCO placed the Potala Palace on its list of World Cultural Heritage Sites. The Potala Palace is now walking towards the future with new vigor and strength.